you go.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners meeting for April 18th. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and in a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. First item on the agenda, we're going to have a discussion about fee hearing by County Council.
So we received a request from the Coos County Animal Control to hold a fee hearing to establish new fees and revise existing fees if approved, and this would be effective April 1st, 2023. And I don't know if the sheriff or anyone in the back can is here to talk about those fees at the request of the board.
Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Jim.
Captain.
Thank you. Captain Patterson probably will stay a little better, but basically, give some feedback.
Yeah, a little bit of feedback there, Jason.
So we had to change some of the fees. Some of the fees were lower than we liked, and some needed to be raised up. And that was in turn to try to offset some of the costs for the spay and neuter costs in the shelter. Spay and neuter costs went up the last 3 months, about $30 to $40 per animal. So we're trying to offset those costs so we kind of maintain that status quo of being able to spay and neuter those animals.
We're trying to keep it as low as possible. My understanding is other counties charge higher than us, which is a bit of a shock. And I don't want to have any kind of barrier towards adoption, but it's unfortunately becoming unfeasible for one fees we have.
What are do you know what the changes are? I have them here, but I don't even know if you have a copy. You want a copy? Just run through them real quick, the bold ones, I guess, as it changes.
Yes.
Looks like
Well, we have adult dogs went up. Medium and large went up $25 and smalls went up $25. Oh, $50.
50.
I'm sorry. And then on the back page, there's some additional.
Looks like the changed the way some of the wording was around the drop-off fees, and there was a range. There was a set price. We made it a range now between $10 and $50, depending on what animal is and age and so forth. And that's for dogs. Cats between 10 and 30. And then of course, the average breed dog, and then rare breed, extra large, small breed dog, through a $50 jump there.
Okay.
Captain, I have a little concern over the terminology, highly adoptable versus hard to place. Doesn't that imply some kind of judgmentalism? That's a joke, Captain.
I know. It is, but it isn't.
No, it's a reality, I understand.
Anything else about this? Anybody from the audience? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to review and approve order 230420L, matter of establishing new fees and revising existing fees as set out in Exhibit A.
You second? Any other discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. As you may notice, Commissioner Sweet is absent. He is next door in his office. He is on the Ford Family Foundation interviewing high school graduates that want to go on to college. They will, for the people who are the kids, I call them, graduates who qualify, they will get a 4-year or more full pay scholarship to where they want to go to. And that includes everything, living expenses, tuition, books, all. So it's really important to be doing that. Okay, thank you. Now, what? Pam? Come on up.
Don't let me trip.
Good morning, Pam.
Good morning, Pam Lewis.
Yeah.
I am a recipient of the Restart program.
Oh, cool.
Tom Sweet was involved at that time.
Mhm.
They paid 90% of me becoming a nurse.
Cool.
Anything that, and I got a little bit of a Pell Grant, so I come away without any debt
Cool.
as a nurse. So valuable,
Yeah,
wonderful
very.
program. Want to say,
Yeah.
attaboy, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
All righty, we're going to, on to item, section 3. We're going to take 3J out of order, which is request approval of resolution accommodation for Deputy Justin Gray and Melissa Hager.
All right, so two options to deal with the aftermath. We are looking for someone in a cleaning up situation. It's a good day, really, when you can either educate people or prevent. That's what we intend to do most of the time, but it's really hard. So on March 29th, 2023, about 09:45 hours, Peace County deputies and for the Mill Casino attending a meeting with timber operators for Peace County. While in the meeting, administrative assistant Linda Hager observed a male later identified as Gary Danielson approaching the hotel entrance. Ms. Hager relayed to Deputy Gray that she believed the male to be suspicious that his face was covered and he was wearing a hoodie. Mrs. Hager observed that as Danielson removed a handgun from his waistband and placed it in his jacket. Ms. Hager immediately informed Deputy Justin Gray, who also observed Danielson, that the aforementioned motion was him. Deputy Gray, thinking quickly, immediately alerted the other law enforcement officers in the room to the threat. Danielson was intercepted by 6 law enforcement officers with guns drawn at the entrance of the hotel. Danielson attempted to escape, but simply was unable to due to the quick response of law enforcement. It is unknown if Daniel's intentions were that day, which are good. Further quick thinking and action on March 29th, 2023, in the arrest of Gary Danielson, the Mill Hotel, Casino, Mrs. Melissa Hager, and Mr. Justin Gray are to be awarded the Sheriff's Medal of Merit. Ms. Hager and Justin Gray's actions that day were done in the best traditions and values of the Peace County Sheriff's Office, and we bring great credit upon many of the Peace County Sheriff's Office, Peace County, and Peace County. So this guy was a felon, please, and he was a voted man.
Well done. Do we need a motion on that?
It was just the word. Cool. We like good stories. 3A, request approval of agreement with the Nancy Devereaux Center, Coos Health and Wellness. Eric, I see you're standing in for Mike.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Good morning.
This agreement allows the county to support the Nancy Devereaux Center's project to develop an adult mental health foster home on the property currently owned by the Devereaux Center located at 2085 Thompson Road, Coos Bay. The county, by and through Coos Health and Wellness, has secured funding through a housing grant with the state of Oregon and the Oregon Health Authority through intergovernmental agreement 177671. Funding under the OHA grant agreement may be used for the purpose of developing housing for those with mental health conditions. The adult foster home will serve eligible individuals in our community that need supportive services and an environment to maintain themselves successfully with a maximum degree of independence and self-determination. This is the contract for the MOU that was approved back in December so that we can get the money going so that we can get this project started.
Alrighty, so I need a motion.
Move to approve and sign the agreement with the Nancy Devereaux Center.
And your second discussion, the board.
So is there going to, what exactly is going to be the role of CHW as far as oversight of this operation ongoing?
I'm not sure exactly what the total oversight for Coos Health and Wellness is going to be, as much as it's a partnership for us to help them get the money to get the program started, and then we will be working with the clients that we have internally at the adult foster home.
I can provide as far as the contract is concerned. Throughout the duration of the project, they'll be submitting to us quarterly invoices detailing what they're spending the money on, so that we'll see that when we reimburse. There will also be there's also a contractual requirement that they keep all records on their expenditures for a number of years after the expiration of the contract. And then last, I'll note that they will be required to record a restricted covenant, which will require them to use this property as an adult foster home for 20 years after the completion of the project. So that will be, that's part of the agreement.
And what would be the provision after 20 years? Do we know?
After 20 years, this is a requirement from the grant. So I think after 20 years, the restricted covenant has ended and they can use it, the facility as they see fit in line with their organizational mission. But yeah, the restricted covenant would end at that point. It's not permanent.
All right, thank you.
So if I understand it correctly, this agreement would then be, the folks that are going to benefit from this would be visited or supervised by Coos Health and Wellness?
We would have some, I would imagine that some of the adult foster home residents would be Coos Health and Wellness employees. I don't know that it's, or not employees, sorry.
Patients.
Patients,
Mhm.
clients. I don't know that it would be restricted to just Coos Health and Wellness, though. We have, as
Okay,
David Gill said in the December meeting, when we had the conversation, we have one adult foster home in the community, I believe, at this point. It is it's a need in our community, not just for Coos Health and Wellness, clients, but for other clients.
okay.
Yeah, they'll have their own staffing, and I think the agreement states that we will help them in their initial hiring of staff. But they'll have their own staffing that will work out.
Okay. I see Greg has his hand up. Come on up.
Greg Spores, Bend in Oregon.
Morning.
I stand in opposition to even talking to Coos Health and Wellness. One more dime should not go to this organization until we have something in writing that states that they will not administer any drugs at all. Transgender drugs, all that crap, vaccinations, that they will not do any of that without parental consent, and that they will open themselves up to being sued if they do.
Greg, that's a different subject than we're talking about.
We're talking to Coos Health and Wellness.
I know that, but we have to stay on point here.
All right.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. 3B, request approval of list of designees authorized by to initiate mental health holds.
Yes, ORS 426.228 and OAR 309-033-02504A provide a procedure understand who the designee is probably cause to believe is in need of immediate care, custody, or treatment of mental illness. And usually on an annual basis, we'll come by and update these lists of designees just because we have turnover and we want to ensure that the designee list is up to date so that we can provide law enforcement with authority to ground level. We have clients that are in such a manner that we need to get to the hospital and be put on hold for their own well-being.
Okay, motion,
Move to approve and sign order authorizing the individuals listed as designees of the mental health director for Hughes County.
okay,
For
second,
purpose of discussion.
discussion,
So, of this list of designees, Doctor, how many of these are new to this list, and can you identify which ones those are?
Well, having not seen the last list, but I can tell you that I believe that Celine Valencia is a newer employee over the last year, and I want to say, I think everybody else is probably already on that list. They've been around for a while.
Okay, thank you. My next question is there a prescribed list, a protocol list of conditional circumstances that would designate this call to be made for these individuals to be taken into custody?
As far as like what has to happen in order for us to think that it raises to the level of a director's hold?
Right, or are there specific conditional circumstances that are specifically disallowed from coming into consideration for this kind of a call to be made?
I don't have the specific indications on what it would take. I can find that out for you if it's something that you want me to get back to you on. I can tell you that what we do on a regular basis is it has to come down to the fact that the individual has become dangerous to themselves in such a manner that we're concerned that left to their own devices that they may either cause harm to another person or group or facility or themselves in general based on their general mental health conditions at the time. Some of that can be subjective based on the fact that every individual is different.
Sure.
But it has to raise to the level that they can't function outside without it becoming detrimental or a danger to someone else. So I don't have the specifics. Every ABC must check these boxes, and I can get that for you and email that to you if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So Captain Sanborn has something to say.
hey, Captain, come on forward.
Captain Sanborn with the Sheriff's Office. We have to be able to articulate that a person is a danger to themselves or others in order to take them into custody or on a director's hold or a peace officer's mental health hold. I would urge against setting specific circumstances which would make that, because every circumstance is different. We don't walk into cookie cutter situations.
Mhm.
So there have been circumstances where people have been walking down the middle of the road and whose health and wellness has had to take them into custody because they're in the middle of traffic and causing danger to themselves or others.
Yeah.
Or they've articulated threats to another person and had the motive, means, and opportunity in order to do so. At that point, they're a danger to themselves or others. If we start putting that stuff into a box, it would limit our ability to be able to take these people into custody on a mental health hold and take them to a facility for treatment.
Okay.
So,
Points stipulated.
go ahead.
But so I guess implied in the presentation here and in your comments, Captain, is that we've got we're going to have situations, I guess always, where the law enforcement involved has to concur with the evaluation of the designee who's involved in a situation case by case basis.
Commissioner, with respect, I would actually disagree with that.
Okay.
The reason being is that people from Coos Health and Wellness are specially trained in the treatment and care of people who are mentally ill, I am not.
Okay.
I don't have that kind of training. I can articulate in a very basic level based upon what these people are telling me that they may be a danger to themselves or others. And there could be a time when Coos Health and Wellness would disagree with that because they talk to them and were able to articulate on their own in a different way. Again, I'm not a mental health professional, and we tend to defer to those people for that.
Okay.
And Commissioner, I would say that we have a very good working relationship with our local law enforcement, especially through our crisis intervention team training that we do annually. So we work with local law enforcement to have these conversations. And in a number of times where I've been involved in situations at the office itself, it's usually a longer conversation with the therapists, maybe our mobile crisis team, law enforcement, because law enforcement may have knowledge of the individual and other past issues that they've had. It's really a team effort to try to figure out what the best answer is. There are some cases where it feels like it's going to go on the direction of the director's hold, and the therapists are able to have the conversation with the individuals. We're able to come to a consensus that this person just needs some crisis care right now, and that they can not be put on the director's hold. So
And typically that involves a safety plan.
Yep.
So there's specified steps which the therapist or the team member will follow up with in order to ensure that safety. So, well, you can't ensure anything, but I mean, to take steps to promote that safety.
Okay.
And the designees on this list are all trained to do this.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. I only recognize one name, who was a pastor who was one of the juvenile counselors, is now working for the wellness department. But I don't know any of these other folks, so I don't know their qualifications. It's a serious step when you put somebody under a hold. And I don't know how these other folks react to whatever situation they're in. It kind of bothers me a little bit that we would grant this authorization to all these folks to put somebody under hold without, and I guess you explained it a little bit there, Doc. They're all certified,
Yeah,
licensed, whatever.
they're all licensed therapists. Most number of them are managers, and the rest are on our mobile crisis response team. They're all specifically trained.
Okay, all right, I feel better. Because I'm thinking, there's always the one that might have a problem,
Right.
out of all of them. HR, please,
I can
come on up.
Any other questions for me?
No, thank you.
No, thank you, Kathy.
Caroline Morgan Beach. I can confirm that every individual on this list is a county employee.
Well, yeah, I know that.
Every individual is a mental health professional. They hold
Okay.
master's degrees, and 4 of these individuals are managers.
Okay, thank you very much. I feel better. Anybody else from the audience?
Yeah, I got a question.
Do we have,
Who does? Oh, Rob, you're online.
Yeah.
Hi, Rob.
Yes, first off, the people at the podium, I can hear just fine, but the people at the table, they're really low. If you could have them speak up or make sure they're speaking in the mic, that would be great.
Is the green light on there? Eric?
No, if you push it.
It feeds back? Start talking a little bit.
How about now?
Oh, that's way better.
Okay, it was getting feedback there for a little bit, Rob. Okay, thank you.
I've got 2 questions. My question number 1 is this list public information? And number 2, where are these people held when you take them into custody?
First question, yes.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
I believe it is.
well, it's in the record for
It
the
is here.
meeting, so it's public
Yeah.
information, yes.
Director's holds are for care. So director's holds are to take them and get them on hold so that they can get treatment for their 72 hours or
You wanted to know where the hold was going to happen.
why the hospital is the
Okay.
only place to take
The
them.
hospital, okay,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty, moving on to 3C, request approval of job description, prevention services program manager. Eric,
We request board approval for job description for prevention services program manager position under non-union pay grade 784. On February 7th, the Board of Commissioners approved additional funds from ballot measure 108, the tobacco tax. These funds will provide for additional staffing under our prevention program, which will be placed under the management of the reclass position of our current prevention services coordinator to a prevention services program manager. As well, we request approval to post the full position.
okay, motion,
Move to approve job description for prevention services program manager at Coos Health and Wellness and approval to post and fill the position.
and second, discussion by the board?
Nope.
Anybody from the audience? Nope, all in favor?
Aye.
All righty. 3D, request approval to purchase diesel above ground storage tank. Paul Slater,
Good morning.
Director for Road Department.
Paul
think
Slater,
that's
Public
right.
Works Director.
There you go.
So this first item, PBS, our engineer of record for this project, it's our diesel fuel tank replacement project at the shop. They recently requested requested quotes for a 12,000 gallon above ground storage tank, double walled. They received 4 quotes, and Mascot Equipment was the lowest quote at $61,906.10. We're just requesting the board approve purchase of that tank from Mascot.
Okay, and need a motion?
Move to approve purchase of the new 12,000 gallon above ground storage tank for the diesel fuel storage at the yard from Mascot Equipment for $61,906.10.
And second, discussion. I noticed that they range from that bid all the way up to almost 109,000.
And pretty, the other 3 were fairly close.
Mhm.
92,000, well, 93,000 to 109.
Mhm.
We did double check with these guys to make sure that their number was accurate and they were comfortable with it, so.
And the
And
little
they're a
bit
reputable
was,
company.
a little bit are based on the specs that you gave them, I assume.
Yeah, they were all given the same
Okay.
set of criteria to bid on.
Right.
Did they all hit the specs spot on, or were these other guys overshooting, or what was?
Well, 2 of them we kind of felt like we're just overshooting. The other one, the modern welding at a little over 92,000, that was a little closer. They're a little further away. The Mascot has the tank more readily available. They can make it faster. Maybe that has something to do with why their price is lower.
Okay.
Well, it works out well for us.
All right, any other questions?
Nope.
Anybody in the audience have a question about this? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to 3E, request approval to rent to own agreement with Columbia Western Machinery. Paul?
So our fleet manager recently requested quotes for our upcoming budget, for this fiscal year 24 budget, to purchase a newer used large loader for a rock pit. And of those quotes we received, one of them was this option from the Hitachi dealer to rent to own a Cat 980 size machine, which is what we have up there right now that we're trying to replace. They offered up a 2-month no-cost rental so that we could get the machine sooner and get the older loader out of our pit sooner. It has some issues. The old loader has some issues that cause us grief with some of the regulatory agencies associated with leaks. So we'd like to replace it sooner and enter into this rental agreement starting May 1st, with the purchase happening right after July.
Okay, motion?
Move to approve to enter into a 0 rent-to-own agreement with Columbia Western Machinery on a 2022 Hitachi ZW370 loader NTE for $345,000 and authorize Paul Slater to sign.
And second, discussion?
I know from our prior conversations that your confidence is high that this loader is going to work out well for us.
Yeah, we had one of our mechanics and one of our guy that manages our pit operation go up and actually look at the loader and drive it around and use it a little bit in their yard up in Sherwood before we made the decision. But
come to.
I hope their assessment is correct, because it sure would be a drag to shell out 14 grand to rent that thing for a month.
Yeah,
That's a pretty steep monthly rental rate.
yeah, we're pretty confident this machine's gonna do what we need to. It also comes with a 4,000 hour, 4-year warranty, which none of the others that we had prices on came with.
Right. Yeah, that's substantial.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Number 18. 3F, request approval to perform digital upgrade on a generator at Weekly Pit.
So our Cummins gen set or generator setup up at the rock pit has been having some issues. It's an old analog style system, and we've had Cummins Northwest look at it before and do some repairs before. The prior time they were here, they recommended that we do this digital upgrade. At that time, they chose not to do it. We're now choosing to do it because just to do the repairs to the analog system are almost $5,000. If we do the digital upgrade, Cummins says that we won't have to deal with the issues we've been dealing with anymore. This digital upgrade will also be usable with a new genset system that we can plan on purchasing sometime in the next few years.
Okay, motion.
Move to approve to have Cummins Sales and Service perform a digital upgrade on our Cummins generator for $13,550.37.
Second, discussion.
I just wanted to confirm, is this $13,000? And I don't think we had quotes on this. Is this
Yeah, I should add. Sorry.
Is this a sole source because Cummins is the only, this is a Cummins generator and they need to perform this upgrade? Or?
Yeah, two things. We couldn't find anybody else that'll even work on it. And number two, they're familiar with our setup. They've worked on it multiple times in the past.
Does this new digital control set come with a warranty?
That's a great question. I don't recall. I can check when I get back to you. If you'd like.
Well, I mean, we have trade experience with them in the past. Obviously, they've worked on the analog system.
Yeah.
Have you ever found that their business practices to be questionable such that they wouldn't honor the installation or subsequent service of this thing if something
not at
goes
all.
wrong?
They've always been great for us.
Okay.
Hmm.
Presumably, they would have incentive to keep that kind of relationship going, because knowing that we're going to be in the market for a new gen set, they're going to want to be on the slate for that too.
Yeah, and we had that conversation with them before deciding to go with this upgrade because we wanted to make sure that if we're going to spend money on this old generator, we want to make sure that this
Sure.
stuff will still work with the new set.
Okay.
So council, are you satisfied with the sole source?
I think that the motion should be amended to include sole source findings that Cummins is the only entity capable, presently able to perform the digital upgrade.
Chair, I'd like to amend my motion to note that Cummins Sales and Service is a sole source provider for this digital upgrade.
Okay, I will second on the amendment. Any other discussion of the board?
No, sir.
Anybody from the audience? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A little froggy today. 3G, request approval of law enforcement agreement, U.S. Forest Service, Siuslaw National Forest. Sheriff Gabe.
Good morning again. So this is a grant that we use to partially fund the Dunes Patrol. We have under its cooperative law enforcement agreement, number 22 LE 11061-000-003, modification 1, total amount of $28,600 we use towards that position. So request board review, approve, and sign the grant acceptance.
Okay, motion.
Move to approve and sign cooperative law enforcement agreement number 22 LE 11061-000-003 mod 1.
Second. Discussion with the board? Discussion with the audience? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All righty, 3H, request approval of resolution adding appropriations to the K-9 program.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff.
So the Sheriff's Office K-9 program has experienced unanticipated spending due to the untimely death of K-9 Raven, as well as unanticipated costs associated with the K-9 program's presence on social media. So further, the Coos County Sheriff's Office is preparing to purchase K-9 Poe as our newest furry deputy. I believe we picked her up yesterday, actually. The Coos County Sheriff's Office K-9 fund currently has about $80,000 in it. The Coos County Sheriff's Office is requesting a spending authority increase. So it'll come out of that fund, which is non-general fund, to the following line item to compensate for the costs. So we're requesting increased spending authority by $5,000 to 001-1600-421-20-04.
Okay, motion.
Move to approve resolution 2303-071B to support this request.
A second, discussion?
Boy, that's a pretty short resolution number compared to the last one, Sharon.
Yeah. Anybody from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Good deal. All right, 3I, request approval of job description for record security clerk.
Yes, sir. So it's not a new description, but, or I'm sorry, not a new job, but we've updated the description to try to meet the demands of what that position is now doing with all the different mandates with, thankfully 114 hasn't passed yet, but with the records and the way things are going. So requesting board approval of new position description of the record security clerk, and this has been run through the union representative already. It's already filled by Dee Clements. So requesting approval of Dee Clements to record security clerk position and approved posting filing of the second 911 dispatch supervisor position. So we leave that.
That motion?
Move to approve Dee Clements to record security clerk position and approve posting and filling the second 911 dispatch supervisor position.
And second, discussion with the board? No, audience? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all righty.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Moving on
Hey, Sheriff.
down to 3K, request approval of post-fill property appraiser 1 position. Assessor Steve Johnson. And before we get into the discussion about the appraiser, how's the knee doing?
Another 3 weeks.
Oh, good, good, it's coming along.
Well, but where
Go
does it
ahead.
start? Well, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
The 23-24 budget that we're still waiting for final approval includes a property appraiser position in the assessor's office. We currently have some funds available from our current budget to fill this position earlier than July 1st. We request the board approval to post and fill the property appraiser 1 position earlier than July 1st.
Okay, motion.
Move to approve the immediate posting and filling of the property appraiser 1 position, which is budgeted for in the 23-24 budget.
And second, discussion? Any?
Nope.
Audience? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all righty,
There you go.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
3L, request approval to transfer expenditure appropriations for maintenance. We have somebody here for that. I don't see.
I have some Kyla.
Kyla, are you online?
Oh,
I didn't notice.
there she is.
That's one thing I miss all the time. So Kyla, go ahead.
She might be
She's muted
distracted
at the
from
moment.
that for a moment. Let me text.
Well,
her.
anyway, this request is transfer 25,000 from other expense to major R&I in the 9900 department of the line item in the budget. General fund for state court remodel under Oregon Justice Department contract 230049, filed as CJ 2023-0170. The request is approve and sign resolution 23-03-070B. So I would make that motion that we do that.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
I have texted Kyla, but she must be somehow occupied.
Yeah, okay.
No discussion.
It's not a big deal, so
No.
anybody from the audience? No, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, we didn't need Kyle. 3M. This is a lengthy one, I understand.
Here she is.
Oh, well, you're too late. We just approved you, Kyla. Or your perfect timing, one of the two. Request approval of draft strategic plan for the Coos County Coordinated Office on Homelessness Community Development. So you're gonna present, Jill?
I'm gonna introduce and then.
Oh,
turn it
okay,
over.
all right, go ahead.
So, Jill Rolfe, I'm the director for Coos County Community Development. I also sit on the board for the homeless response plan, or the homeless response committee. And so basically we hired RDI to do a Coos County coordinated and strategic plan. You guys, I know both of you have participated in the meetings, the open meetings that were held. One was in the community building in Coquille, and the other one was in North Bend. So this is the draft results from that communication and the plan that was put together. And I'm going to introduce Jennifer Groth from RDI to give you an overview of that. I don't believe you don't have a PowerPoint, do you? No. Yeah. And this is posted online. It's under the homeless response coordinator office, and it also was posted with the agenda. If there's any comments or anything, if we can get those provided to Jennifer. This is just the draft plan. We're asking for approval of the draft plan to move forward with the final plan.
It's posted where?
It's posted both with the agenda, and it's also on, if you go to Community Development's website, there's a tab for the homeless strategic
Community
plan.
developments through the county?
Yes,
Or?
county.
Okay. I have to be really, for me to find it, I have to be really specific where to start and then where to
Yeah,
end
so
up
at the bottom of our website,
under
the-
Coos County.
under Coos County, there's a tab for community development. And then
Okay.
on the right-hand side, there's a tab for the
The
Office
plan.
of Homelessness.
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly what it's called, without looking.
Homeless response office.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then Andrew Brainerd is also here. He's the director of that
Okay.
office.
All right, so Jennifer?
Good morning.
Laura?
Good morning.
As Jill mentioned, my name is Jennifer Groth. I work for Rural Development Initiatives, which is a nonprofit that does community engagement and community development work. And we were asked to help support the community in understanding what people's priorities were relative to providing better coordination of services to the unhoused and also pathways to permanent housing. As you know, this all results from House Bill 4123, which identifies 8 pilot regions in the state of Oregon to receive $1 million grant to improve coordination of those services and provide better pathways to the unhoused. We have an advisory group, as you know, that's coordinating the activities involved with this grant and the funds that are received under this bill. The 2 representatives from the county who are serving on the advisory group are Commissioner Sweet and Jill Rolfe. What I'd like to do for you today is kind of explain the process by which we collected this information, provide you an overview of how the document is structured, and then answer any questions that you have. Does that sound right?
Okay, yeah.
So this plan, I should mention, is due to the Oregon Legislature on May 23rd. So the reason that we're starting this process now is to make sure that we incorporate any feedback that you have. We are also we met with the North Bend City Council last night as part of their work session. They're meeting tonight to approve the plan. And then tonight we are also meeting with the Coos Bay City Council so that they have an opportunity to review and approve as well. So the first 2 pages of this document are essentially an executive summary that gives you an overview of the project itself. I think what we want to point out here is that as part of this process, we interviewed over 60 stakeholders. Stakeholders being defined as either people who are currently experiencing houselessness, people who provide services to the unhoused, or people who are working on housing, increasing or addressing the housing shortage in the region. Additionally, we implemented a community survey and collected over 200 responses to that community survey to find out what the impressions and attitudes were around housing and homelessness in the region. As part of, we had 2 workshops, as Jill mentioned, to try to bring people together. We did the classic, dot voting to try to determine priorities and come up with a community vision. The community vision statement is included in the executive summary. And then on page 2 of the executive summary, you can see that we pulled out, as a result of that voting process, 8 priorities that the community determined were important to the strategic plan. So what I'm going to do is I'll read those as part of the going through the document a little bit more, but just so that I can explain how this is laid out. On page 3 of the strategic plan draft, you can see there's a key stakeholder analysis. As part of our interviews and our meetings, there were a number of comments that were continually repeated as part of the process, and so we wanted to make sure to pull those out. And so, for example, the most frequently identified priority among service providers was a demand for additional beds across the housing spectrum. We did want to mention the fact that most of the stakeholders or people who are providing services believe that services are to the unhoused population. While there's certainly room for improvement, that they're reasonably well coordinated, particularly on an informal basis. The benefit of this being a small community is that people talk to each other and have good relationships, and that does benefit the services that are provided. We are also hearing pretty loud and clear, as a result of the community survey and the conversations that we had with people who are providing services to the homeless population, that there is a disconnect between the broader community and people who are providing services. The community needs to understand more of what's already happening and understand how they can be part of the solution. The other thing that came through loud and clear was that there are a lot of organizations and agencies and groups and churches outside of the regular social service process that are impacted by this problem. For example, public works departments, parks departments, police and fire, libraries, schools, youth and adult foster care providers, and faith-based organizations. So there's a lot of groups that are involved in the problem that you wouldn't traditionally think were providing services to the unhoused. Another issue that came through loud and clear was that we are fortunate in that our local elected officials are doing a lot to communicate at a state and federal level what the problems that you're seeing on the ground, and that is going to benefit us going forward in terms of the people who have resources at the state and federal level being able to provide those as part of their understanding of what your situation is. In other words, the communication channels are there, but there was a desire to make sure that those are continually reinforced. There was a number of folks commented that there's some efforts to develop housing in the region and that those seem separate from efforts to address the problem of the unhoused, and that there might be better coordination among those 2 groups of people. Additionally, we talked about, we heard in many of the public meetings, the town halls, we listened to the recordings of the town halls as part of the community survey, that this problem is not going to be solved without robust substance abuse and mental health services alongside housing. It can't just be housing. Services need to be tailored to specific sectors of the population. In other words, not every person experiencing homelessness are alike. The general groupings that we heard are that there are specific services that need to be provided to families with children, with senior citizens and disabled people who are on fixed incomes, veterans, youth exiting the foster care system, and people who are chronically homeless. And then just a note that it appears that most of the services to the unhoused population are concentrated in the Coos Bay North Bend area. So page 5 of the strategic plan draft is just a summary of the community survey results to date. These are open-ended questions that we asked. So We have pulled some survey quotes that we thought sort of elucidated what the responses looked like. But so if, for example, when we asked what does homeless look like in your community, they said living on the streets and camping was the top response. On page 6, you can see when we ask what is working well in addressing the housing shortage, the top response was nothing is working well. So we have an opportunity for some community engagement here and some to work on the problem. And then on page 7, how can the region improve its approach to dealing with homelessness? There are a variety of different answers that you can see there. The other thing that we talked about with the advisory group that they thought was important to include in this strategic plan that we see on page 8 is they wanted to say, what is the problem we're trying to solve? So I guess the way we could explain this is, as you can imagine, when we talk about solving homelessness, it sounds like an awfully big nut to crack. There's probably a lot of moving parts, a lot of things happening. So we had a lot of conversations dialing down as what are the specific problems related to this issue that we're trying to solve. And so this is just a list of some of the things that came out of that. So for example, do we understand what the demographics of our unhoused population look like? And that might be an important thing to research as part of the solution to the problem. Are we comfortable with the sources of data that are available to us that measure how many people need services in the community, such as the point in time count, the point homeless management system? The Oregon Department of Education school report cards has a listing of how many students are unhoused in the county. There was a lot of discussion about what the intersection is between crime and homelessness, and it seemed like that would be something worth looking into in terms of identifying what the specific problems are and seeing what those solutions might be. Many people talked about the Measure 110 Drug Decriminalization Act, pardon me. And I think there were 2 issues that came up around that. One was there was a concern that drug decriminalization is increasing the homeless problem in our region. But on the flip side of that, the people that we talk to that are providing substance abuse services are receiving more revenue towards substance abuse treatment programs, which is helping with the unhoused population. So my understanding is there's a House bill right now, 2513 in the Oregon legislature that's trying to address the balance of some of these issues. The other thing that came through when we talked to the advisory group, but also to a lot of the stakeholders, is they want a greater understanding of what the economic factors are around housing and homelessness. So there's a goal in here around doing some work to understand what the economic indicators might be for housing and homelessness as a way for us to understand that problem a little bit better. Obviously, there's a concern about duplication of services and wanting to be better coordinated, and then making sure that the broader community is more aware of and engages in this issue as a way to address some of the problems that we're seeing. So the bulk of, or the main heart of the document starts on page 10, and what that is essentially we have pulled out the community defined priorities as part of this plan. And for each of these priorities, there are 8. What we've done is we've listed what's already been accomplished, because one of the things that was really obvious to us when we started interviewing all of these people is there's a lot of work already happening. There are a lot of services already being provided, so we're not reinventing the wheel here. And so there's an opportunity for us to say, here's what's already happening. Is this working well? Is it not working well? And an opportunity for the community to sort of evaluate that. So each goal has building on what's been accomplished. We also asked during the workshops, what can you do in the short term and what can you do in the long term to address these priorities? So we've also created in this document short-term activities and long-term activities for each goal. And then understanding available resources. So we contracted with somebody to do grant research around each of these goals to understand what sources of funding could be used after this $1 million is used for whatever purpose the community decides it needs to be used for, what available resources are going to be, you can apply for grants or would be available to keep moving forward on this issue. And then also measuring success. How are we going to know that we accomplished what we set out to accomplish in terms of this goal? So I will say that the House Bill 4123 does set out certain things that are required as part of this strategic plan. So one of them is to identify resources. So that's why this is included in here. The other one is how will you measure success needs to be in the plan under the wording of the statute. So the first priority is to improve coordination of housing and houselessness services among agencies and jurisdictions. This is obviously the intent of the House bill anyway. It also came up as the highest priority in our conversations. The second priority on page 12 was to develop pathways to supported permanent housing and increase workforce housing. This one is also in the statute, but it was also prioritized by the community. So there's some congruency there. On page 14, as I mentioned earlier, as a result of the community survey and the conversations we had with stakeholders, a high priority seems to increase community understanding of the housing shortages and service to the unhoused. Page 15 is the fourth priority, which is exploring the root causes of houselessness and the economic impact of the lack of affordable housing, and doing some work around that. And page 16, the fifth priority was to address broader community concerns about public safety and trash accumulation. I think if you could distill the community survey into a couple of issues, it would be around people's concern for public safety and the accumulation of visible trash that they see. So there are things that have already been done, but there are ideas for things we can do in the future to improve. Page 18, really loud and clear, a desire to improve mental health and substance abuse services. Then goal 7, advocate for community needs related to housing and homelessness at the state and federal level. This is what I talked about in terms of the conversations that are happening between local elected officials and state and federal elected officials about these needs so that they're aware of what is happening on the ground. And then the last, number 8, is a goal that was identified in the House Bill 4123, which is anything that we do has to identify and address racial disparities in providing equitable pathways to permanent housing. And so what we've done in this section is identified some strategies that the community could use to address that as part of their work. So on page 22, sorry, this is such a long document, but it's just turned out that way. On page 22, one of the requirements of House Bill 4123 is that we identify national models and determine their applicability to local conditions. We ended up talking to someone who has decades of experience with these national models because we are not experts in this field, RDI is not. And they were able to define for us what the different national models that are currently being used or had been used in the past, so you can just see a summary of those here. His comment was, as we all know, models are models. They're not plug and play. You can't just go into a community and say, let's do this, and just impose it on a particular region. So what his suggestion is that the community could investigate these models, find out if there's pieces of them that would work to help solve the problems that you're seeing. So that's what that section is about. And then starting on page 24 is just a glossary of terms to address the plethora of new vocabulary and acronyms that we learned as part of this process. And then on page 28, you have a listing of the advisory group members who we've already talked about. On page 29 is a list of the stakeholders that we were engaged with as part of this process. One of the things I want to point out that's a little outside of the scope of the original project is on page 32. We were approached by a community volunteer, Barb Milliron, who was really interested in this issue and wanted to volunteer her time to help with this project. And in speaking to her, we realized that she had a lot of connections with the faith-based community and different churches in the county. And so we sort of asked her if she would go and reach out to these churches and interview them and talk to them about how they're getting involved in this problem. And so I just wanted to make sure, because she did so much work, that she got her own page in the plan. She reached out to 23 churches in Coos County, interviewed a lot of them. This is just a summary of what she found out, but I will also say that we had a lot of faith-based organizations that participated in our workshops as a result of her work, and a lot of their suggestions and comments are also in the main body of the plan. The rest of the document is basically just resources that are available that we collected along the way. Under policy initiatives, I will say that the Oregon legislature has about 80 bills right now that are dedicated to this topic. I did not list them all here, but I did try to pull out the ones that I thought were most important so that you could reference those as you wish. Technical assistance resources, this is just opportunities for documents or resources that you can use to help with some of these goals that the community has identified. Also on page 34, a list of local and regional funding resources, and some additional government funding resources. There is a spreadsheet on the back that's impossible to read, and my apologies for that. It needs to be on larger format paper. But what I will tell you is when we asked the grant researcher to identify funding opportunities that would go with each one of the goals I told you about, we also just told them to give us the whole list. Like, give us all of the opportunities, even if you didn't assign them to a specific goal, so just so that you would have that information. And that's what it is at the end there. So my understanding is that, and I want to make sure that I include Andrew in this because I know he's just getting started, but he's already been doing a great job getting connected to all of these folks that we've been talking to. But answer any questions you have, but also make sure I defer to the advisory group, Jill, or whatever we want to do in terms of how you'd like to proceed here. Sorry, this is a lot, I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You did a great job of counting right through it. As you were going through page notations and the material, we started to go off track about page 24, and what we have was not correlating to what you were saying.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as far as I could tell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, but that's okay. I was able to go back and find what.
Do you have the glossary? Because that was a late addition.
Yeah, the glossary is at the very end.
Oh, okay.
The glossary is just before that unreadable spreadsheet.
Oh, so I think maybe what happened is
so-
that the document you have is a little out of order compared to what I have. So I apologize.
Exactly, yeah. So that's where we started getting, I saw we were both kind of confused there, but
Yeah.
anyway.
The colored one's a little better, but not.
The colored one is the one that
yeah,
that
okay.
she went through,
Mhm.
that I left for you this morning.
Okay, all right.
Questions?
No, not really.
I have a couple of questions. I was looking through this and I was wondering, because of Measure 110, which basically liberalized everything as far as drug usage goes, in my opinion, do you know how many people that are homeless are from, let's say, out of state?
That question came up a lot in our interviews, and I will say the reason that there's not a lot of hard data numbers in this plan is because of the spectrum of answers we got to different questions. Does that make sense?
Sort of.
In other words, we're not one of the issues that we have in terms of the problem that we're trying to solve as a community is getting clear data.
Yeah.
And so I would say that what we typically heard was that somewhere in the neighborhood of, if you take what people believe to be the homeless population, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% are from out of the area.
Okay, so.
But I'm reluctant to sort of put that into the record just because.
Yeah, I got scribbles all over this thing.
Yeah, and so I think that one of the steps that this project could take was to identify the different sources of data on the homeless population and make sure that we're comfortable with the numbers and that we have consensus around them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but when I read this and I got to thinking about it and started doing a little minor research. Hawaii, California are the top, and New York's second or third, Oregon's fourth in homelessness, and then Washington State is fifth. And I'm just wondering, most of these states are very liberal in their drug laws. A lot of them that aren't listed, like let's say Kansas and some of the others, are way at the bottom. So I just wondered, that's why I asked the question about Measure 110, because it seemed like after that got approved and there was really no consequence after Measure 110, that we exploded with folks from who knows where, right? And then I got to wondering about, on page 22, it says, Housing First model, it says a few stakeholders mentioned that Seattle is a success story for this model. And I'm going, well, if they're number 5 in homelessness, I wonder how they're so successful. You know, some of these things I scratch my head about going, wonder how that works when it doesn't seem to match with other data I looked up.
Yeah, and I mean, we're just reporting on what we've
I
heard.
got you.
So, and I agree with you that we have been engaged with Margaret Salazar, who is the regional HUD person for the Pacific Northwest, and she acknowledges that the problem in the Pacific Northwest is definitely significant compared to other parts of the country.
Yeah, and
So
something else
she agrees with you on that, huh?
Yeah, something else in here too. It said that about a third of the homeless were families, and 2/3 were single people.
In this document?
Yeah. Where did I see this? I wrote it down here. Yeah. But what I was curious is, it seemed like a third seems rather high to me.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not the person to talk to about data because we attempted to get data as part of this document, but we were not comfortable putting numbers in here along those lines just
Okay.
because we kept hearing different numbers from different
Uh,
people.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we felt like what we should do is identify that data was an issue that we should research further as part of understanding the problem for this community.
So, Andrew, you had a question? Come on up. And then we'll, after the board discusses, then we'll go to the audience.
According to about data information, I know they had some possibility issues with the time point count accuracy for the numbers of organizations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with the new interim director with Orca, Alexis Berry, I do want to address those issues and find out how we can get more accurate numbers for the future on that. Because as you can see, some of the data that might be from that format is a reason why you might have many questions. But I would like to see and look into that better to get more accurate numbers and actually locations as well. That's one of my things I really would want to set a goal for, and to work with Orca on that better. Because according to a few people I've talked about with the volunteer process for this year's numbers, it didn't go very well. But in the future, I'd like to see it better. So,
Well, along with that, we've been struggling. We've had a couple meetings about the homeless issue and the Ninth Circuit Court decision on homeless people. And we're going, well, we don't have any facilities to house them. So you then have to have public property where they can house themselves overnight. And we got to looking all over the county and going, none of these are even close to any kind of support facilities. But the county owns them. We're scratching our heads going, how are we supposed to do this? I guess we take the best of the worst and say that could be an area for camping, but it's really a struggle for the county, and we don't have those kind of properties.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation.
in the future overall, and during the workshop of North Bend City Council meeting yesterday, they pinpointed a couple areas for their area to look at. And then I've also, with the help with Commissioner Taylor of resources, possibility, I believe outside the Hauser area, we need to contact with. And then there's a few other projects I'm looking at currently right now within the city of North Bend. And I'll be actually attending a meeting today with the Salvation Army for other possibilities that they would like to help out with the situation as well. And that's this afternoon. So
I should say that Andrew has hit the ground running in the last month that he's been on board.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
agree.
Mm.
I'm excited for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions you thought about?
Well, your item number 8 here on page 20, identifying and addressing racial disparities and providing equitable pathways to permanent housing. You know, I'll tell you, from my perspective, I think that as a society, we've moved way beyond where that's really even a consideration. I mean, you know, I know for myself, when I look at any individual, you know, I don't care what color their skin is. And I mean, does anybody really? I mean, it seems almost like this kind of stuff gets thrown into plans like this as an ode to PC or something. I don't know. I mean, is it really even real anymore? I just don't see it. So, you know, I kind of have a moral objection to that, because I think we're far beyond that as a society.
No, I take your point, but just in terms of semantics, the grant agreement that's tied to these funds indicates that this is part of what needs to be reported on in research, and so
Of course it does.
So that is the situation.
Yeah.
Of course, if the state or the grant keeps pushing this, it still becomes a problem instead
That's
of
right.
accepting that everybody is the same until proven different.
And and as we talked about, this is a great opportunity to have a conversation with, you know, your state elected representatives and say, you know, we understand that, you know, this funding can be used for this, but we're curious about this particular aspect of it, and have that conversation.
I got you.
But no, and I know you do. I know you know that, Commissioner May. But I think that to me that's the avenue to voice those concerns.
Yeah, I understand. I do that every once in a while in an email to folks, and sometimes it isn't always well received at the state level. Let's put that way.
You know, the constant mantra of racism is frankly nauseating.
Yeah.
And I think it's demeaning and unproductive.
There was a talk of a grant for a nonprofit here last month, for a nonprofit that's located all over the West Coast, but they have an office in the Coos Bay North Bend area. And I was reading their website before we approved this possible grant, and it said that they were supporting Black Lives Matter. And I go, why would you do that? All that's doing is tearing racial groups apart. It is looting, robbery, etc. Why don't you change that to where we have the teachings of Dr. King, where everybody's going to come together, everybody's going to work together, get along, you know, understand each other, all that kind of stuff. And eventually they did. We didn't go and do the grant, but they did change their website, at least in the Eugene area, so that, to me, it was promoting more unrest than anything, instead of bringing people together. Okay, so we go to the audience. Anybody have questions?
And one more addition to it, I just want to thank Jennifer for her guidance and Jill's help and the board. They have done a tremendous job of helping me with tools. I know things are going to be coming up on the agenda here soon as well for some approvals, but I just want to thank the opportunity for the commissioners and for the great team. And we are in a good start and looking forward for the future.
Thanks for the good job you're doing too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, hang on. Greg, you have a question? Come on up.
Yeah, recent developments with our governor giving herself unlimited power over agricultural, rural, and state land. We seem to be missing a huge opportunity here with the federal government's involvement to cry out to the federal government and say, why do we have to be constrained to 35% of the available land in Oregon? If the federal government wants to help address this problem, let us have land. Oregon can do so much more if we can expand rather than contract our communities. We're working at this backwards. Oregon needs a larger percentage. The federal government cannot continue to hold on to 50%, 52% of the land in Oregon. How can we address these problems when we are forced tighter and tighter and tighter into this box?
Anything, Greg? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's you.
Susan Kirkendall from Coos Bay, and I just have a question, and in all of what you've given, and it's huge, and I'm gonna go and do my own homework. I was curious, I know a lot of these people are falling into these things, and we give that a bit of a victim kind of understanding of what they're going through. I also, being a mom of 5 kids, know that there comes a point where you have to be responsible for the choices that you make. And I didn't hear anything, and I know the constraint. I understand a little. We have a Ninth Circuit Court, and we have all these other entities. But is there in all of this a place where the individuals, because they all are, there comes that point in all of this where they do become responsible for the choices they're making? So it was just more of a question. I didn't hear anything.
Well, I think from my perspective, and maybe Andrew has other comments, the conversations that we heard at the individual service provider level, I think that's where that happens, if that makes sense. In other words, they're talking to their clients on a one-on-one basis and determining, how much rope to give and how much, and how, and what those choices are more at sort of the case by case level. Whereas this thing is much,
Just a very broad
just a very broad spectrum. Does that make sense?
It answers that massive amount of what you've had to give. Maybe just before I step away, is that thank you, Alicia, I could turn it out. Is that is a concern of mine.
Okay.
Because if there is no, if we as individuals are not held to being responsible for the choices that we're making at some point along that process of health, I don't know that we ever, as human beings, do. So
I take your point.
It's just kind of a question, and I didn't hear that in any of what was being set up to try and help those that are in this situation.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a question, a comment.
Hang on, Rob. There's a lady in the audience that's coming up, and then you'll be next.
If this
Come on
is
up.
any
I need to know your
reference
name
to
and
the
your,
member of Linda Waterman, North
from,
Point.
okay, thank you.
If we have a good friend who has a friend who was in New York and not too long ago, and went around a street corner and there was a man standing on the corner with a big sign that said, "Go to Oregon, they will provide a home for you."
Oh, yeah, okay. Rob Taylor?
Yeah, one of the things that you talked about, Bob, was all the different states that have high homelessness and a homelessness problem. Let's quantify what is in common with all those states: New York, Washington, California, Oregon. Gee, all of those states are ran by Democrats, and it's been Democrat policies who, instead of actually using and utilizing the free market system, all they've done is and I'll use this word stakeholders, because not all of us are equal in this stakeholder thing. Some of us are giving in this stakeholders, and some of us are taking stakeholders. And so this is really more redistribution of wealth being pushed by a very liberal legislators in all of those states. The reason we don't have enough affordable housing, and I've talked to several different developers about this, I've asked them why they don't develop more property, and I've read what the Cato Institute has written on this subject. I've read what the Cascade Policy Institute, and it seems like it brings down to what Greg Spohr says: all the land use restrictions and land use laws that we have in this state. We have plenty of land to build houses, but we're not being allowed to use that land, number one. Number two, all of the high development fees that come with development. Every one of the states that you mentioned, Bob, every single one of them have high development fees, whereas Florida, Texas, Midwest, they don't have as much of these high development fees. And then you've got the fact that there's all these regulations on building houses. And once again, I go back to these liberal Democrat policies where they're trying to force people to cater to this this new age idea that we have to save the environment. So that comes into the process as well. So I don't see anything in this coordinated plan that is addressing the land use, the high cost of development, and all the regulations that we have. If we start working on that, we might get away with building more houses, which would make housing more affordable. But all we're doing is taking from the people who produce and we're giving it to people who are not producing right now. And then you have to look at the lawlessness. I mean, the first part of this that I just talked about was about the homelessness, the people who actually need houses, who can't afford it, the families who are in earnest trying to better themselves and trying to do better in their lives. But then you have this, not a homelessness or a houseless problem, you have a lawless problem. As I'm sitting here and listening to you folks, I just watched one of the local abandoned homeless guys walk by my window. He is never going to own a house. He is never going to be productive in society. And as far as I'm concerned, he should be institutionalized because he's on drugs most of the time. He's got mental problems, and they're allowing, he doesn't even have shoes on. He walked right by, didn't even have shoes on. Homelessness has nothing to do with this young man. It's lawlessness. We allow people to do whatever the hell they want, and we don't hold them responsible for what they do. So once again, you have a strategic plan that's more worried about racial disparities, when if you allow the market to work, the market isn't racial. The market wants to sell to everyone equally. And that's what we would do if we would allow the market to run. But as long as you've got a governor and a legislature that is so focused on climate change and racial disparity and diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're never going to get anything done because they're not getting to the meat of the issue. And the meat of the issue is getting rid of these regulations, loosening up the land laws, getting rid of urban growth boundaries, and allowing people to build houses. And so I just wanted to put that out there in a statement, and I want to thank you and Rod for bringing it up about some of that garbage that's in these types of grants and are forced on people like us because they're using our money against us. To get our $1 million, we have to accept all this racial disparity, all this climate change, and all this other garbage. And I personally am sick of it, and I'm insulted by it, but who cares what I think, because, you know, I'm just a white guy, and so my opinions really don't matter anymore. So I just wanted to put that out there, and once again, we're, you know, the two people who are sitting at the table, you know, one of them is, you know, Jennifer Gross. She works for a nonprofit. How much is this nonprofit making? You know, we just approved. You know, thank you too. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Anybody else? Yes.
Matt Wilbanks, Coos
Yes,
Bay.
yeah.
Couple things I wanted to try and hit. First of all, I wanted to thank the lady back here that mentioned personal responsibility.
Mhm.
She was discussing in the fact that the item here doesn't really have much mention of that. And I understand it's a very preliminary thing, so I'm not bashing the document or anything like that. I wanted to bring up the section, the term stakeholder. This kind of relates to what she's talking about. I'm not a fan of the term stakeholder. It's a loaded social justice term. If you actually look into the history of its use in, you know, nonprofits and government documents. And it goes to the personal responsibility issue, because if you look at most of that list of stakeholders, there are some law enforcement in there, obviously, but most of those are community service organizations, whether it's Coos Health and Wellness, the Devereaux Center, et cetera, et cetera. These are places who receive funding, whether it's donations or government funding, not necessarily to perpetuate the problem, but that ends up happening anyway. A lot of you know my position on the Devereaux Center. I think it actually behooves them to perpetuate the problem. They continue to receive funding and get larger and larger. So I would prefer to see some other things added into this stakeholder category. Perhaps go and talk to some of the organizations or citizen groups that they exist for another reason, not to perpetuate the problem, but to fight the problem from the crime perspective, or the, you know, maybe these people are in these positions because they choose to be there. So that would bring the whole personal responsibility thing into it. We should have some stakeholders that are looking at it from the other direction, not just from the public policy, nonprofit, oh, I'm getting money to fight this problem. The other thing I wanted to bring up is kind of tied into what you mentioned, Bob. You were asking about what percentage of homeless are actually from this area. And she's absolutely correct. It's a very hard number to pin down. Even if you were able to identify every homeless in town and go out and interview them, you're probably still not going to get an accurate number. A lot of them just aren't truthful with you. A lot of them are mentally ill and are going to give you a crazy answer. It's very hard to pin down. But what I've been seeing, and, a lot of people bring this up, and I'm not going to go down the road of busing, whether they're busing them in. I think that's a bit of a conspiracy theory, maybe a little bit of truth there, but it's not. It's another subject. What I'm seeing is spreading of the word of what's available here in Coos County. We see what happened in Portland, what Portland has turned into. I lived south of Portland for a long time. Portland used to be a beautiful city. Seattle used to be a beautiful city. Their policies, and I think you even mentioned this, is they're saying, oh, this is a success story in Seattle. There are no success stories in Seattle. Okay, there aren't. Look what's happened. Okay, if we follow the same path, if the Devereaux Center is putting the word out on the street, either intentionally or just out the back door, oh, we're here and we offer these services. A lot of times these places offer services no strings attached. I'm sorry, but you have to have strings attached. You cannot just hand out willy-nilly. And I'm going to use the terminology like feeding stray cats. No, humans are not stray cats. But the mentality of a starving person on the street, whether they're starving of their own choice or not, is that of a stray cat. They're going to take whatever handout they can get, and the easiest ones to take are the ones without strings. So I'm going to end this with a quick anecdote. I have a friend who had a family member who was a traveling carpenter. He was down in California doing some work recently. I'm not going to give any names. Had some transportation issues. Decided to take the Greyhound bus from California up to, I believe, Roseburg, where she had to pick him up. On the bus, he overheard homeless discussing the fact that they were coming up here to go to the Devereaux Center. The word is spreading. I almost brought this up in the other item when you guys were discussing the Devereaux Center. This needs to be addressed. If we're providing any support or funding to that organization, they need to be held accountable for inviting people into the community and giving stuff out, no strings attached. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Oh, wait, well, Phil's next, I guess.
Phil Thompson, Coos Bay here. My comments is mostly to Rob. Everything, that's what's wrong with society right now. I'm talking about the homeless. Everybody's going to say liberal Democrats. I've been a Democrat all my life. My mother was a Republican. My dad was a Democrat. So I know both sides of the problem, how people feel. But there's a lot of good Democrats that don't believe in all this, giving them all this money and stuff. Right. So I wish Rob would quit calling. I'm one of them, a Democrat. Him and I agree wholeheartedly on the First and Second Amendment stuff. I've worked with him. But as long as we try to divide the people, you're adding to the problem. I got good Republican friends. I'm a Democrat. And if you just come right out and say, forget all the roundabouts, the racism, prejudice, it's a learned behavior. I grew up in the South, I know.
Phil,
it's a
talk
learned
to
behavior.
us.
Well, I was okay.
No,
if I have to look
you're
you
talking
in the eye,
to,
yes, sir.
You're talking to us,
Yes,
not
sir,
them.
Bob. It's a learned behavior. You don't inherit it. So the people that's teaching the racism and stuff is the problem in this country. Now, I don't know what we're going to do about the homeless, all of them. And I agree, some of them is dope addicts. Some of them is mental. But when we keep dividing the country, we got to get patriotism back, where everybody works together for a solution rather than divide.
That's right.
Thank you.
And Phil, I appreciate those comments. And while Dino's making his way up, I just wanted to respond to you. And I think what Rob is really talking about is he's talking about party leadership and the philosophical bases on which they establish policies that impact all of us. And I do not think that Rob, and I don't want to speak for him, but I'm pretty sure that he understands exactly what you're saying about that as people, as whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever, we need to build the bridges here locally in our community. But we recognize that there are corrupt leaders really in both parties. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that there is no corruption in the Republican Party leadership, because there most clearly is. So anyway, just want to make that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dino?
Dino Bandit. Just as a comment and an observation, I need to go up to Reedsport every week. And as I drive up and I go by the old paper plant, there are 35 to 40 units still there. Now, I don't know who owns those, but why can't those be used? The grounds are there. I believe they're powered. I think they have some sanitation. Someone, and I don't know who that was or what political group it was, but we always thought it's going to be the conservatives' re-educational camp. We took a lot of time and surveyed it for a long time. Did we ever find out who owns that, and could it be and could it be a temporary solution to some of the, quote, family unhoused people?
Don't know.
Because those are multiple, each of those has at least 2 doors to it. So it could be maybe 60, 70 families. I don't know. Do we go to Reedsport?
Rarely.
No, what I mean is our county.
No.
No,
Just
no,
above
that's
Lakeside.
Douglas County. And
That's Douglas County.
those units are owned by FEMA. The property is leased to FEMA. The owner, I forget his name, but he's got a number of port type properties up and down the coast, he and his group. And so they lease that parcel to FEMA, and FEMA has been storing those housing units there ostensibly. They were for use in the fire threat issues in the valley. And why they would, those units were previously stored at the Jackson County Fairgrounds. Why they would move them from there all the way out here to store them for a period is an absolute mystery. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'll also say that I've been seeing a few of those units around parked on private property now. I know that some of them had gone up for sale, either on auction or a direct sale. I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but I know a number of them had been picked up by private parties. I've seen a number of them just in the last few days. But anyway, so could those be used to house homeless? I think probably not where they're sitting right now, because they're not connected to utilities. But but the availability of those units is of some question. Maybe there's a benefactor party who could pick up some of those.
Well, it appears that we have a state problem, not just community problems.
That's right.
I don't care who counties it in. Could we work with somebody to go, hey, there's some units there. Maybe we're talking about some land somewhere.
Well, maybe it could be argued that the homeless problem is an emergency, so FEMA should get involved. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Thank you, Dino. Anybody else want to weigh in? Apparently, we generated some interest and some concern.
Indeed.
Yeah, Andrew.
With your permission, can I address some of the comments and questions?
Sure.
Maybe I can help with?
Go ahead. We're right there. You got a mic.
You can, yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
We can
All
hear you.
right. So regarding, first off, Matt,
Hey,
sorry, my apologies. Matt has put a lot of work into attending the meetings. I respect him for that. I'm there with Jill's help, Jennifer's help. Thank you. She put together a really good team with the stakeholders. But one of the things that we're going to look at here soon, with the approval of the advisory board here soon, is actually have a pretty much almost like an ad hoc committee that can meet with me regarding different groups that have different opinions or questions, like you had talked about. So I am looking at that. Another question is, how do we find out data, or how many times has Jim Bob gone to these services? So there's actual programs that we could actually take a look at that could help with data and information of where their last locations were, not just to find out, keep track to find out where they're going, on bad behavior, but also to see if they're lost, or we can take them out of the system as being one less homeless person in our county. So there might be certain programs that can help coordinate that better to find out where they have been going. I know the Devereaux Center has a program, and I believe Orca too, but it'd be nice to find a program that can work with the county, faith, inspirational-based churches, different nonprofits, to actually track better data to find out where their needs are and how many times they've attended different places. So I hope that could help out with a few of the questions that we had comments on.
So another thought that I had, and I got an email or a text from somebody in the audience about there doesn't seem to be any mention for funding for fire departments, EMTs, when you have situations for homeless folks that are having medical issues, drug issues, campfire that got away, whatever, and no money for law enforcement either. So that's another concern, is to have some kind of adequate funding. If you're going to have this homeless issue, some of these folks got to be protected somehow, and they got it on both sides, the community and the homeless folks. So there should be something there for funding for EMTs and police and fire.
Yeah, and I think that it was our intention to include that. If it's not coming
I
through,
didn't
we can try to clarify.
hear that.
Yeah. In other words, what we tried to say is acknowledge the fact that it's more than just social service agencies that are impacted by this is a strong point in this document, and the fact that the impacts to those, the Parks Department, Public Works, Police and Fire, schools, et cetera, needs to be considered as part of this. So that was our intention.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Yes, sir. Come on up. Anybody after that? Okay.
Hi, I'm Richard Koznitsky, a longtime resident of Coos County. The homeless issue is a symptom of much deeper problems in the economic and social life of our country. And dealing with it just kind of on its own is not really going to solve the problem. I think that locally, the various agencies that are trying to address, the human beings that are in this position need our support. And there probably are some people that don't really deserve our help, but I'd rather help one of them than let some family or some individual that does in fact need our help go without that assistance. And I think that we have to address this as human beings helping other human beings, and how we live together as humans. A lot of the issues that people have been trying to slough off are real. Okay. I think just, again, the homeless problem is a symptom. It is not the problem. And we have to address other things. So think about it, everyone.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
All righty. And Andrew, you have one last, oh, Doug?
We got Doug back there.
Sorry, but
You think of it when you think of it.
yeah, well, I jotted these down, but just to build on what this last gentleman was saying, I appreciate this document, but it to me it's a lot of words. It took me quite a while to print it last night, but there's still a struggle looking for solutions. And Rob Taylor and I don't agree about a lot of things, but I do agree that an integral part of this as a solution needs to be more housing. I am trained in the medical model, and it looks to me like a lot of this is treating symptoms rather than treating the disease, to build on what this gentleman said here. The root causes of homelessness: number one, lack of sufficient income. Number two, lack of affordable housing. And I don't see a lot of that addressed in this plan. The two most basic human needs are the need for security and the need for significance.
That's right.
The need for shelter is basic. The need to feel useful and connected and have a sense of purpose is basic. Both of those things are basic needs. Solutions must include ways to give people skills, productive jobs, and adequate income for affordable housing. And we need the housing itself. And so as county commissioners, I think this notion of whatever can be done to allow more housing to be built, I would see that as part of your role in all of this. There are programs out there, but we need more programs to train in building skills, to coordinate schools and nonprofits such as Habitat for Humanity. I mean, there's an organization that actually creates housing for people. Give people ways to help build their own housing and be productive and connected. One last comment, and then I'll shut up, is that the notion that people are moving to the Pacific Northwest because it's a bunch of liberals inviting all of the riffraff of the country to come here, I think is silly. Right now, I think the notion that climate change is not a driving force in migration is silly. I think those things are real. This is a desirable place for a lot of reasons. People come here looking for opportunities. Some people come here because it's not as cold as other places when they don't have a house. I don't think that we should not provide services and programs just because this is a desirable place for people to come. I understand we don't want to be just inviting people to come and get a handout when we're struggling to put together a budget for the county. I understand all those things. And anyways, it's a complex problem. I appreciate the effort that went into this plan. I would like to see more of it go into how are we going to create housing, and how are we going to create programs to empower people to get back to work and to be productive and to be partners in putting their lives together as well as having a place to do it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Sir?
That's actually a long ways back.
Well, you took the long route.
I'm telling you, the seats are better back.
Yeah.
Elmer Yardley, North Bend. Good.
but it's only gonna get thicker with ideas. I can tell you, the homeless aren't worried about that. It's what we can give them. Well, I was up in Eugene on this Andre thing, and I noticed no homeless are even close to the Capitol building. They got nice grass, they got guys that go around there and mow and stuff. And I'm going, I can walk out my door, and before I get to the end of the block, I already see homeless. And like I said, or like many of the people here said, that these people are getting welcomed into our community. But yet, you can drive down the street a little more, and everybody on Virginia needs help, but they're not looking to work. They're looking for handouts, and that's something we got to stop. Now, being in Salem, looking for homeless and can't find them there, go to Safeway in Salem. They've got a fenced area across the street, probably got 100 shacks, but they have light in there. They have outhouses on the side, and inside the fence, it's clean. They can have pets. I heard from a couple of my friends that there's a waiting list to get in there. But the people that are in there don't want to get out right now. I understand the weather's bad and stuff. But our community, North Bend, came up with this. You give us $5 million, we can go get property, build a place. When, like this last gentleman here said, you could actually, if the people want to live in something, they can build something. We're only talking 4 by 8. They got a window, they got a front door, and they can have pets. But I didn't see any pets running through the fence. But I mean, come on, why are they trashing our community when you put them in a little fence? Kind of looks like a jail to me. But you know what? It's clean in there. And the city is clean. I wouldn't be afraid to take a friend to the Salem Capitol to eat at a picnic. Well, you can't really do that around here. Something to think about. Everybody's idea out here was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and this could turn into a book, and where we have solved everything.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am?
Let me just quick. Let me get here. My name is Rayleigh Cousin, and this is a request.
You're
approval.
from Murder Point or something?
No, I'm Saunders Lake.
Okay.
How's it?
Yeah,
There should
there
be
you go.
something, there's something coming that way. I'll have to keep my eye on it.
Okay.
Okay, request approval of draft strategic plan for the Coos County Coordinated Office of Homelessness. Okay, so I encourage you to approve this plan. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
And it will be continued on, and there'll be a lot of work to be done on it. And I appreciate you doing it.
All right,
Thank you.
Anybody else want to weigh in? It appears that this is one of the big topics for the community. Huge one.
Yeah.
So we have a motion?
Yeah, there's a lot of great discussion there. I move to approve the draft strategic plan for the Coos County Coordinated Office on Homelessness and approve to move forward with the final draft with conversation.
Nice. Second for vote. All
So-
in favor?
So
Oh, you want discussion
I
more?
want to make one more point on that,
Okay.
and that is, tremendous comments here from everybody today, and I really appreciate. This is a really complicated and very sensitive issue. We are dealing with human beings, and I think that we all care about it, and I hope that in trying to find solutions that we're none of us become calloused to any of the realities that need to be addressed. And so specifically, what I would like to see in the final draft, or as we move forward to the final draft, is more elements in this plan that specifically build a model where the beneficiaries of the plan, that being the people, the homeless people that we're trying to help and address here, actually have more of a requirement of a skin in the game, because we all know that when you have an investment in the process, that you're going to have a better success rate. And the tangential benefit of that design in the model is that we're going to kind of weed out those who frankly are not looking for the help. And we shouldn't be wasting resources on people who refuse the help. And there is a certain percentage of that exists as a part of this whole problem. So that's what I would like to see. So I'd like to amend my motion to incorporate more self-ownership components for the beneficiaries of the plan.
I would second on your amendment.
Okay.
Just a thought, though, that I was always taught there's nothing free. And so when you're given something by somebody and you're in need, you need to somehow work to pay back or whatever you can do. But nothing's free in this life. If it was all free, nobody'd have to work, right? We'd all be out playing somewhere. That's not the way it works. Anyway, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
And with your permission, Jennifer, I have to leave for Coos-Bay for 2 meetings, so we like to excuse ourselves. But always available for a phone call or an email.
Yeah.
Thank you both for your good work.
But it was an interesting conversation.
Yep.
All righty, moving on to 3N, request approval lease agreement with SOCC for Office of Homeless Response.
Yes, so Southern Oregon Community College has offered a space to house Andrew, and and it provides a place for him to hold meetings and provide resources and continue on with the discussion, and it's at no cost to us.
Does that mean we can get him out of here? I'm just teasing.
So anyways, we are asking for approval so that we can set this up, and he'll have a place to work at it.
Okay, for discussion, well, I need a motion first, I guess.
Move to approve the lease with Southwestern Oregon Community College for the County Homeless Response Office, and to have the Community Development Director to sign.
And second, now for discussion, I circled this. It says, at this time, it is no cost agreement. I can't sign something unless I know it's no cost or there's a cost.
It's
How's
no
that work?
cost until 2025, and at that time, the agreement comes up, and if there is a cost, we bring it back.
Okay, so the agreement says there's no cost until 2025.
Correct.
I feel better now.
Okay.
It just said no cost.
I thought you had the
It said it was at this time, no cost, and I'm going, well, what time will there be a cost? I'm not signing the contract where it's open-ended.
So it's supposed to coincide with the grant.
It says here May 31, 2027.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was 25.
So no cost until May 31, 2027.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay, feel better now.
Was even
right.
further.
All righty, any discussion? Rod?
No, sir.
Anybody from the audience? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, now.
Thank you.
3O, request approval order authorizing sale of real property and delegating signing authority, county council.
Okay, so this was the forest land property that in our last board meeting, the board approved to be sold. This order gets a little more specific, authorizing the sale of that land to Southport Lumber for $200,000 via private sale. The order also delegates signing authority to the county forester, Lance Morgan, in order to complete the transaction.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Yes. I move to approve order 23040221L, authorizing sale of real property for $200,000 and delegating signing authority to the county forester, Lance Morgan.
Any second? Any discussion by the board? Discussion by the audience? I might note that this property I looked up is surrounded mostly by warehouse or timberlands, and the last surrounding property is Southport lumber. It also appears from the aerial photos that it is a canyon-like, and the county has no other lands even close to it. So we will sell this and then incorporate those dollars so the county forester maybe get adjoining lands next to the county forest. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty, 3P, request approval of signing letter to support Benson Creek wetland restoration. That's mine. 10 Mile Lakes Basin Project Partnership, TLBP as it's known, has requested that we sign a letter of support for the grant request to Oregon Water Enhancement Board. So they're doing a wetland restoration with the cooperation of the owners, Lone Rock Timber, to do a rehab on the stream right next to where it empties into the lake.
Sounds
So
like
I
a
would
good
entertain
idea.
a motion for that.
I move to approve signing the letter of support for the Benson Creek Wetland Restoration Project.
I would second. Discussion? Discussion from the audience.
Yes.
All in favor?
Oh, hold on.
Where are we?
I had a discussion.
Oh, Rob, okay, there you are. I always forget this thing.
Why do we need this restoration project?
Because it's filling, the sediment that's coming down is filling in the lake constantly on all arms of the lake. That's why it was developed in the first place. And so eventually.
Does this give them a tax break on property taxes?
No. Because they don't. The owner still is having it under farm use. It's being grazed, but the ownership does not pass from the owner to this TLBP. They're only doing the enhancement on the stream where it enters the lake to slow down the sediments, et cetera.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. 3Q, request discussion of possible ordinance for catalytic converter tracking.
Now, this is mine. The problem is that we have an epidemic of theft of catalytic converters for the high value metals that are contained in them. This affects a number of, actually the entire county. And so these catalytic converters are then taken to auto dismantlers or metal recyclers and traded in for various amounts of money, ranging, as I understand it, from $100 to up to $500 per unit. Catalytic converters are serialized, and those are correlatable to the VIN of the vehicle they came from. And so it's been brought to me by a private citizen that this is a problem that's been impacting a number of people around the county. And I wanted to address it with a county ordinance. Now, I'll say that council has brought to light the fact that there is, in fact, a state statute, Senate Bill 803 from, I don't know,
The
2021 that addresses this issue. So apparently, there is statutory basis for prosecution of a lack of record keeping, but I still believe that drafting of a county ordinance parallel to this would not be a harmful thing and give us a localized motivation for enforcement of that kind of a policy to hopefully reduce the theft of these catalytic converters.
Okay. So I would need a motion for council to direct a draft ordinance.
I move to direct council to draft an ordinance requiring parties accepting catalytic converters to record the serial number of the unit as well as the ID of the party turning in the unit, maintaining the records for 5 years with fines for non-compliance.
And a second. Discussion, other than that?
Nope.
Anybody else? Jill?
Just one question about the enforcement part of it. Is that something that you would see the sheriff's department enforcing? Is that something you see your code enforcement person enforcing? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, that would be a law enforcement issue, not a code enforcement issue.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, all right. Motion for consent calendar.
Move to accept the consent calendar.
A second. Any discussion about that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, late agenda items. I have several. One is that all of the appointments,
I move to consider late agenda.
Oh, well, no, late, but this,
Oh.
never mind. It's not on the late agenda item, you're correct. Go ahead. I second, yeah. Now, to hear a late, all in favor, aye, yes. All righty, with all that done.
What would we do without Bobby?
I know. Keeps us all in line. All of the appointments to Urban Renewal Agency for North Spit have run out to the county. And so we need new appointments. And the first one is that John Sweet's term has expired. I will replace Melissa and you will be appointed on the budget committee, if that is acceptable for you.
I need to respectfully ask if this is a possibility to table until our next BOC meeting.
I think they're going to have an urban renewal agency, I don't have it with me, meeting soon. I don't know how soon, I've forgotten.
I think it's May 11th.
Okay, well, we got time then.
So can we
You want to just table all
Yes.
three of them?
Can we please do that?
Sure.
Thank you.
And with that, Commissioner report. We tabled these three.
Well, it's been a very interesting last couple of weeks since our last meeting. There have been no shortage of people with issues that have arisen regarding. We're continuing to work through the Allegheny Cemetery issue. We've got issues with citizens of the county having electronic sensitivity to electronic frequencies, and so we're been trying to address that issue as well. And gosh, what else have I been doing? See, I forget to put together my list of everything, and so I get here and it's like
We finished the budget.
oh yeah, budget. That was a big time burner, but necessary and painful. So, going through the budget really, for me being a new commissioner, was a great eye-opener. The amount of work that goes into it is eye-popping. And fortunately, many hands make work a little lighter, but it still is a tremendous amount of effort on the part of everybody involved in it. And so kudos to all department heads who happen to be listening, and the master of coin in the back of the room. It was distressing to realize afresh and with such gravity what a dire situation we really are in fiscally as a county. If we did not have the remaining American Rescue Plan funds to fall back on, that, by the way, that is in parentheses, the printed artificial money that belongs to my grandchildren and all of our grandchildren who have them, we wouldn't be able to balance the county budget this year. There's enough of those funds left to balance it or come close to balancing it one more time. And then we fall off the cliff to the tune of probably around $3 to $4 million at that stage of the game when we factor in cost adjustments and inflation. So, we have to come to grips with how we're going to deal with this. There are some creative solutions that have been proposed, and we're investigating those. At the next Board of Commissioners meeting will be a proposal that I've introduced to add a mechanism to our property tax billing system for citizens of the county to voluntarily contribute monies to law enforcement. That would specifically be the sheriff's office, the jail, and the district attorney. So that's one measure that we could possibly take. Matt Wilbanks back here has raised the issue of the possibility of doing a similar function. In fact, my idea sprung off of his, so he's the originator of crowdfunding from private parties who are possible benefactors, larger companies who are experiencing profits sufficient to allow them to make designated and programmed predictive contributions to the sheriff's office or the same kind of structure that I'm talking about. And since those come out of the general fund, that could provide quite a bit of relief to the general fund and allow us to get into that position where we could balance the budget. So if everybody in the county who receives a property tax bill has an opportunity, either through an insert in the bill or a line item on their statement, to say, you know what, I could kick in $200, I could kick in $500, then that would be an alternative that could help us bridge that gap, since the sheriff's levy did not pass in this last election. And to have an alternative means where people could voluntarily, rather than be forced into that contribution, could make the difference. It doesn't require a vote. And here's the great benefit to it as well. On the property tax that we all pay, there's only a small percentage of it. Only 10% of the total property tax that we pay actually comes to the county for our use. Okay? With this proposal, as well as with Matt's proposal, 100% of those monies could be usable for those law enforcement enterprises, and therefore 100% of the savings from the general fund to those departments would benefit the general fund. 100% versus 10%, there's a big difference there. So that's something to keep your eyes on, and we're continuing to work through the details of how that would come together. But that's my report.
Okay. Last Thursday, you forgot about the town hall we had in Coos Bay.
Well, I wanted to leave it for you to talk about it.
Well, it was lively. I don't know how many people were, 30, 35 people, somewhere in that neighborhood, I'm guessing. I started out, nobody wanted to ask a question, so I finally called on Mr. Rob Taylor. He usually has a question. And he started in about this camp for LGBTQ, XYZ, whatever, Rainbow Coalition, and apparently they were going to have teachings, according to their flyer, about specific points about drag queens for kids, 13 to whatever age. And I was taken back by some folks in the audience. I won't name them. although I know some of them, who just thought that was okay. And I thought, how could you ever think that a 13, 14, 15-year-old teaching them about drag queen fine points or anything else would be okay? And I pointed out in the law that I looked up, only psychiatrists, psychologists, MDs, or licensed social workers are allowed to talk to kids about this. Apparently that didn't make any difference, because somebody said of these folks, well, they got to learn somewhere, but I'm thinking not at that age. That really kind of just blew me away. I just couldn't understand that logic. I still am fuzzed up about it. It just bothered the heck out of me. And there was a lot of good other things we talked about, but that one really stuck with me as the first thing out of the bag. And there was these folks going, so what's wrong with that? Right. I just couldn't, never mind. I get off on it. I did have a great time last Friday. Went over to Douglas County Fairgrounds where Roseburg Forest Products announced they're going to upgrade and put in new equipment, new buildings, all kinds of stuff, to the tune of $700 million in the next 4 years in Dillard and Coquille and partly somewhat in Medford, to upgrade their plants and actually produce some new products. So they're going to add a brand new dryer system over here in Coquille that I think roughly about $100 million. The bulk of the money will be spent at their Dillard plant, which is huge, as you probably know. But it was great that a company who started in Douglas County, in Dillard actually, is reinvesting in local hometown so that people can still have jobs for the entire area. And it includes parts of Northern California and parts of the South, as well as mostly of Oregon. But they have most of their holdings here in Oregon, but they're reinvesting locally, which is hugely important to me anyway, and to the rest of us, because we've lost so many industries in this area that I do remember when I was a kid, if you didn't have a job, you'd go and you had one the next day. If you didn't like that one, you'd go down the street and had one the following day. It was amazing. I went to college by working summers in the mill, spring break and Christmas break. I had enough money to go to college, have a car, spending money, all because of that job I had with one of the local timber companies. You don't see that much anymore. It's almost all gone. But it was quite the time at those times. And you never saw a homeless person. You never even knew of anybody even on welfare or anything like that. They were all working. Kids were clothed, fed, all that kind of stuff. Times have changed now. With that, we have a list. First on the list is Rob Taylor. You signed up.
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
Well, you said you wanted to permanent be on the list, so I signed you up as being first on the list.
All right. Thank you. You know, the two main issues that I see the county involved with right now or is going to affect the county is the physical cliff that we're going to be going over in 2 years when we run out of money and we run out of the American Rescue Plan money. And we've got to find some way to deal with that. And at this point, I'm even willing to entertain the idea of taxes. We may have to increase taxes if we cannot find any other way to solve our problems, our economic problems. But I also believe, and you touched on this, Bob, a little bit, is the next generation. And we have a situation here in the state of Oregon where we have House Bill 2002 that if it's passed, it will allow 10-year-olds to get abortions. It will allow 10-year-olds to get operations on their body to change from male to female or female to male. And none of these procedures, from the abortion to the transgender operations, will have to be reported to the parent. I think it's unconstitutional. I think it's wrong. I think it's immoral. But the thing is that it goes straight down a party line vote. The Democrats are supporting this mutilation of our children, and the Republicans are fighting against it. Now, I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I'll have Phil know, and I consider Phil a friend. But the fact is this country is divided. This country is seriously divided. I'd like to think we're all Americans and we're all on the same road. But the fact is we've got some serious disagreements. Some people want to continue to grow the government and have the government tell us how to live our lives, including this bill, H-Bill 2002, where we'll be allowed to mutilate our children, and we can't even stop it. In fact, if we try to stop it, they can turn us in, as parents, as being abusers of our own children for trying to prevent them from having an abortion or having medical procedures that we don't approve of. And I don't know what the county can do about it, pretty much nothing. But I think it's something that we should all know. And I think it's that we should also know that there is a divide in this country, and we better come to a conclusion, because these type of things, when you get between parents and children, it can really end up in a really bad place. Kind of like that fiscal cliff we may be facing in 2 years. So there's a lot of very important issues that we're going to have to come to an agreement on. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Phil Thompson had to leave, apparently. Linda Waterman.
I have spoken with John Sweet. I've spoken with the roadmaster. This is concerning Myrtle Creek Road out on Oak Ridge. We live, unfortunately, I guess I could say, at the very end of it, and it runs 4.5 miles of paved, which is starting to have huge chunk holes in it. A friend got a flat tire the other day because with the raining that's filled up with water, you don't see it there. Our road, we live at the end, so that's at the 9-mile marker, 9.5-mile marker. So the other 5 miles is a winding, narrow, dirt, gravel road with logging trucks on it constantly. We do not have potholes anymore. We have jolly green giant wading pools, I call it. They are horrendous. And you do this, if you dare do that, to miss the potholes. If you don't go real slow and just creep into them and come out, you have problems, major problems. Then you're also trying to avoid logging trucks coming down the road. Anyway, it's going from bad to worse. God forbid we should need an emergency vehicle up there. The person could die, the house could burn down, or the robber could shoot you dead before they could get there, because the road is so horrendously bad. We have approximately 34, 35 homes with residents in them that use that road. This is not a back, it's back, yes, but it's still a very used road. Not usable now. It's just a crying shame. And I know the budget's bad. I've heard all the talk from these other two people, lip service I call it. I know the budget is bad, but we need help. When we first moved there 16 years ago, it was in bad shape. We have ditches, sides, everything is bad. They come out and they fix the road, it rains, all the gravel washes down into the ranchers' fields. Not good, and plus you wasted all that gravel. There's so much that needs to be done out there in Myrtle Creek, it's a shame. They were coming out twice a year before, and it was great coming out late spring, early fall, and it tided us over through the year. When I talked to the roadmaster, I said, "You haven't been out since last May," and he agreed. He says, "Yeah, I know, we haven't been out since last May." Well, logging trucks, that should not be our problem. I mean, it is our problem, but we should still be able to drive over our roads. And if I double dog dare you to come out and drive to the end of to our place just to see what I'm talking about.
So you're next to Ron Mason's place in Juniors?
Ron is up above us, yes, he's a
Okay,
cousin.
I know
Yeah.
about where you're at then.
Yeah, our county road ends at our cattle barn.
Okay.
And then from where Ron is, that's private, all private and family road.
Mhm.
We have, my husband and I have taken our own gravel, our own time and filled in the potholes from this little bridge up to our house.
Mhm.
We do that all the time so we can drive over it. I have heard the words, well, maybe if I go pour concrete in those holes, they won't come back again. But we know that's not a good thing to do, and I've suggested, no, we don't do that, they won't like that. But that's how bad it's getting, is people are tired of, it takes me 20 minutes to get out to Highway 42. That's when the road's good. And now, like I said, the main concern is we have a lot of elderly people that live up there, including us. If we needed emergency services, it would, in fact, several families have had to have emergency services and met them at the pavement. But the pavement is also now becoming huge holes.
So you're talking from the intersection of Rock Creek and Myrtle Creek on up Myrtle Creek to the end of the pavement?
Yes.
What about the
no,
gravel?
the end of the pavement ends where Rock Crook and
Okay.
Myrtle Creek, Rock Creek.
But the
Myrtle- yeah,
holes are between
section,
42 and the Y there?
From the time you turn off of 42 onto Myrtle Creek, it's 4.5 miles of paved.
Yeah, right.
And then the road splits.
Yeah, right past the bridge.
Myrtle
Yeah.
Creek goes on up and Rock Creek goes that way.
So you're talking about the paved part mostly?
No, the paved has in the center, mostly going down the paved, there are a bunch of holes where the pavement
Okay.
has chipped out.
All right, that
And they
needs to
come
be
up
fixed.
all the time.
But then you're talking about grading for
But
the rest
now
of
I'm
it?
talking about the rough gravel.
Okay.
Once you
I
turn
gotcha.
off, once you go off the bridge and turn right, from that point on, you're on gravel.
Right.
That's our nightmare.
And eventually you can get to the point where you can turn off and go to Powers.
Yes, that's before you get to our place,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, they can go up to 3,200.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you can't do it now, it's gated and all that,
Yeah.
but I mean, yes, that is where you would go.
Mhm.
And we're past that.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so I'll talk to Paul about it.
Mrs. Waterman, how many residences did you say are affected up there?
There are approximately 33, 35. My husband and I were counting them as we come down the road today, just
All right.
to give you an accurate count
Okay.
of little homes where some homes have 2 and 3 families living in it. There are constant people driving and using that road on a daily basis.
All right. Thank you.
And like I said, logging trucks. Yes, we have to deal with logging trucks, and that's one of the things they told us, well, as long as they're logging, we won't be up there. One stretch from the 7-mile marker down to the bridge, there is a logging outfit going on, coming out of one of the neighbors' properties. The logging was so bad for the trucks that the logger brought in somebody and graded that portion of the road. Well, then that left a muddy, slippery. Oh, and we also have 3 sections where the road is literally caving off into the creek. There's cones in 2 of them, and then ribbons in another place up by our place, that the road's narrow anyway. And to miss potholes or scooting around, oh, I guess I don't want to get that close because the next thing I'm going to be in the creek. It's dangerous, it's scary, it's dangerous, and like I said, if you don't know the road, it's, especially nighttime, it's a scary proposition. And I, like I said, would hate to see somebody need an emergency vehicle and they died because help couldn't get there because of the road.
Do you know how far the school bus goes up there?
School bus goes up to almost to our place.
Okay.
And turns around and goes
All right.
back. So yeah, the school bus, the sheriff's department, a mail lady. Oh,
Yeah.
talk to Tina. She'll confirm everything I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else that didn't sign up? Want to talk? Matt?
Hey, Matt Thanks, Coos Bay again. Real quick, we're on, so thank you for the credit for that idea, but I mean, you're off and running with that, and I appreciate that. One thing did pop into my head. You mentioned the master of coin back here. So your idea, obviously it covers landowners to get a tax bill.
Yeah.
I used to be a landowner, I'm not anymore. And I know there's people in my position that would also want to contribute. I'm on a fixed income, I don't have a lot of money, but I would like to contribute to the county. Maybe something you could possibly do is create some kind of a donation form at the finance department that's available there. Whereas you're not getting like your tax bill, you're not getting one, but you could walk in and maybe fill out a form that throw a few $100s at it, maybe something to run with.
That's a great idea.
The other thing I wanted to mention, because there was a gentleman in here, but he left, I wanted to bring up the issue me and him were talking about, and this is what he was here for. You guys will remember at the Lakeside Town Hall, the lady that brought up the fire sprinklers?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So the fire sprinklers in new manufactured homes being used for short-term vacation rentals, and this was she was specifically up near Lakeside talking about this. Has there been any movement on that? I know the commissioners, you guys all seem to be opposed to it. I just wanted to maybe get a status update on that.
I understand that our community development director and county council are working on the situation.
I can tell you that I looked at this for about 6 hours yesterday, actually. So I haven't really fully worked through my conclusions yet, but I can say that I know a lot more about building codes than I did before. So that's
We're all keenly interested.
Okay. Yeah, he was just going to bring it up because I guess he doesn't own a vacation rental, but he has something that might be covered under that rule if it were to stay in effect. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Anybody else? Sir?
Hi, John.
Rich. Linda told me they would be talking about the roads today, so I came down.
Sure.
I live on Big Creek. And I get that a winter like we've had, it does not a lot of good to grade in the middle of a rainstorm. But they haven't been out of Rock Creek, Myrtle Creek, Big Creek since last spring. Did a great job. You've got great men on your crew. They just need to be there more often.
Yeah. Now, they're working on a huge culvert up there, I guess. They're still working on it.
Not in Big Creek.
Yeah, up a ways. I mean, it was
this morning.
No, not this morning. I'm saying.
No, I mean, there's no projects.
Last fall, they were put in this big culvert. Is that right?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess they still have some more work to do on that thing.
Well, yeah, it needs, but my suggestion, and I know when John took over as the roadmaster, he started rolling with
Right,
great, just great, works good, it's the best job to do. But it also takes about 3 or 4 guys, 3 or 4 days, where one guy with a pickup and a tow bar could hit Big Creek in 1 day and be gone.
Oh,
And
with just
a grader. And and obviously the way they do it now is better. But when we're in a place like she's talking about,
right,
it wouldn't be a shame to take a grader up there. Like I think Roseburg Lumber had Luscombe come up and grade the road for you guys. That's kind of embarrassing. I would think.
Yeah, but we've had some discussions about how much road tax they pay to the county road department and all that.
Granted,
the costs are far outweigh that, and we had some other discussions that got the log haulers and a whole bunch of other folks all excited in the last few years.
Well,
and
our big problem this year was Lone Rock had a big job above us.
Yeah.
And works, but that's between them.
We had a big discussion with DTO, Douglas Timber Operator, which is a consortium of the logging companies. They weren't happy about us talking about them going through with 1,000 trucks every month and beating the road all what. We never came to a satisfactory conclusion between us.
Maybe that
Put it
should
that
be
way.
pursued. because obviously that is, their uses. But anyway.
Thank you.
Also,
Okay,
One last,
Sure.
you're
okay.
we're all aware of the philosophy of the Devereaux Center and the South Coast Gospel Mission. I think maybe the directors need to change places about every 6 months. Get a perspective for each other.
Good thought.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Anybody else want to jump up? With that, huh?
Kind of a captive audience.
Richard?
I can't resist. You gotta excuse me. So I got here in '73. I'm Richard Koznitsky.
Right.
Okay, I got here in '73, and I saw the end of what this place was. Okay, and at that point, you know, those mills are running, and you could, as an 18-year-old kid, get a family wage job, you know, the day after the prom. And,
right.
What happened is we more or less decimated an ancient forest. And had that been done a little bit more consciously and a little more sustainable, you know, the economy would still be going on. There'd still be good jobs and everything. And I appreciate that you got to experience that.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one more thing that I'm going to say, and then I'm going to get out of here. Is that we live in the richest economic entity that ever existed, you know, in human society.
Sure.
And within the wealth that this churning economy is producing, we should be able to sustain, you know, our lives here and the common good, or, you know, common good, you know, the infrastructure that's here. But we're, the distribution of that economic power, which we're calling wealth, is really distorted. And there are a lot of people that have the hoarding disease. And instead of newspapers in the living room, they got these big fat, you know, accumulations of wealth. And I don't know how we deal with that, but we have to, as a society, as an economic entity, we have to correct that. And I don't know exactly how we go about doing it, but if we want to survive as what we are, we got to do it. And I'm going to leave and see you guys next time. And I appreciate that you guys are willing to take on the work you're taking on, whether I agree with you or not. Okay.
Thank you, Richard.
One of my sayings is, if you don't, what did we say? Oh yeah, if you don't, if you want to get the laws passed the way you want, get elected.
Yep.
You guys
Sure.
should.
All right, thank you. Anybody
you.
else? Seeing nobody else, thank you all. We're adjourned.